What's up, wrestling fans? Welcome to a special edition of the Atomic Drop Podcast. I'm your host, the Bat Fry, Kenny Fry, and with me, I got a special guest host.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Paul Spencer. Tonight we have a very special guest, daughter Kelly Slaughter of the Icon. That's right, the Icon. Hall of Famer, Sgt Slaughter's daughter, Kelly Slaughter, will be joining us tonight. So, Ken, take this away because I'm ready, Ken.
All right, join us in about 50 seconds or so. Don't go anywhere, and that's an order, maggots. Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody. It's the Bat Fry, Kenny Fry, Mr. Fuji 2.0, Paul Spencer, and we are the Atomic Drop Podcast. What's up, Paul? Friday night, fight night, brother.
Fight night. Oh, man, dude, we got a show tonight. Ken, I am so stoked. I'm so blessed to be here tonight because, Ken, once you pass that 50-year-old mark, you go back to icons back that you grew up. And tonight, my God, we have a daughter of an icon joining us in a little bit here, Ken. I can't wait. How are you doing, though, honestly?
I'm doing all right. I'm still recovering from the sore throat. Absolutely. It's getting a little bit better. I heard me kind of squeal there in the beginning doing my intro. But I'm doing all right. But tonight's show, I'm telling you what, Gen Xers, millennials, they know all about icons, right? So I can't wait to talk to our special guest. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's ask your questions, right? Ask questions. We'll get them up sooner or later, and we'll see what we can get out of it.
You know what, Ken, real quick, before we bring Kelly on real quick, she's going to join us in about 2 minutes here. It's funny, you know my situation. We have got custody of Chelsea here, my niece that we have custody of now. And today was a funny thing. I actually had to go to her school today, Ken. She had career day. I'm a retired guy, Ken. I owned a couple businesses, but, Ken, I felt so out of place because one guy's a doctor, one guy's a lawyer, one guy's a firefighter, one guy's a police officer. So I go in there like, well, my name is Paul Spencer. I own a couple of businesses. I'm retired now. I don't really do much. I own a podcast company, though. We do that. And then one of the girls said, how many viewers and subscribers do you have? I'm like, not that many. She's like, well, I have 700. I'm like, well, maybe we can get you on the show, too. Maybe we can bring you aboard here, thinking like that. But, yeah. But, Ken, what would it like? I mean, I'm so stoked that we have Kelly on here because so many questions that we could probably go on for an hour after this. But what do you think it's like if your dad was a superstar, an icon in any category of sports entertainment? What do you think it would be like, Ken, first?
I'll tell you what, Paul, what an amazing question. Like, you would think that would be like, some fantastic, it'd be awesome. Dad is super famous and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you what, one of the things that really opened my eyes watching Sgt Slaughter's biography was the downside of that as well. I mean, it was great because the dude was just an absolute icon. Super famous. He was a hero to many, a villain to many, back to being a hero to many, and to have I always wished that you had a super famous father. I wish I was super famous. I am the Bat Fry, so I am kind of a little bit famous anyway.
You are,
but I mean, I am. But I mean, that'd be a great question that we could ask Kelly. What was it like growing up, with an icon of a father? Looking back on it now, actually, when you're a kid, you don't realize how famous your dad is. But as you grow older, you kind of look back on it and like, what? That's pretty sweet, right?
It is. Well, you know what, Ken? How about we do this? How about we just start the show? Because we have 38 live viewers right now joining us. So how about we bring on Kelly Slaughter because they don't want to hear us, Ken. They want to hear what the hell's going on.
Nobody wants to hear us.
So what? Without further ado, let's bring in Kelly. Kelly, how are you doing tonight, hon?
Hey, I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm super excited. I can't wait for this. It's going to be awesome.
I know. Ken, start it off. What kind of questions do you want to start off with here? I mean,
well, all right. So Kelly, real quick, before we get too much into Sgt Slaughter, I have a couple questions, for you for right now, for fitness wise. Recently, you were on with the Keeping It Real gals. They did a fantastic job. One of the things they asked you about was like you're into fitness right now. You're into teaching classes, and one of the things that you brought up were Spartan races. And how you like doing Spartan races and stuff like that. What do you like most about doing Spartan races? And like, have you ever done like Tough Mudders or anything like that?
So I primarily do Spartan races, but I have done like a Muddy Princess and I did a Savage race, which both of those were a lot of fun, but I just tend to go back to Spartan. Um, I I love Spartan. I love doing obstacle course racing. They're so much fun to me. Spartan is a little bit more like hardcore.
Yeah.
Um, but it's still fun for me. And it's the feeling at the end when you jump the fire and you cross the finish line and you've done it. Or even more so now that I've done more of them, the feeling I get when I do an obstacle that previously I failed on and I'm able to complete it.
Conquered the
That's a
demon.
really awesome feeling. Yeah.
Well, and so like I have a couple friends on through social media, and in real life and stuff like not just social media, that do the Spartan races and the Tough Mudders and stuff like that. And I see clips of them training for it or going through the obstacle course. And I'm like, I would love to do that, but tell you what, Kelly, I'm nowhere near enough physically fit to do anything like that. But anyway, like the amount of work that goes into that and just like the drive and the push is absolutely mind blowing to me. And like you see those people with their cars, they'll have like the little like stickers on their windows for the Spartan races and stuff. I just I had so much respect for that because it's nothing. It's no joke. It's not something you wake up one more day. I'm going to do a Spartan race today. No, that's not how it works. But you got to train for that, and it's so impressive.
Yeah, I think
Well,
it's
thank
like,
you.
yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I think with me, it's like I'm 52 years old. I'm lucky enough to wake up in the morning and put my shoes on in the morning, let alone run a race like you're running, Kelly. And kudos to you. I mean, it takes a lot of dedication, of course. And what I want to ask you, Kelly, is before we get into the main questions here, of course, about your father growing up with that lifestyle there. Kelly, what are you doing now, and where can they find you on social media? I know you have a YouTube channel, of course. Talk about where you stand and where the people can find you, of course, as well.
Yes, well, on Facebook, you can find me. I've got a page on Facebook called Slaughter Daughter. Also Kelly Slaughter on Facebook, on Instagram, Slaughter Daughter Official. On Twitter, it's underscore SGT Daughter. And then if you've already mentioned, I do have a channel on YouTube called Slaughter Daughter. And basically, it's just primarily me and my dad talking. And we have had some guests on there before. But there are a couple episodes where I actually talk about Spartan and I talk about Spartan with some of the members of my team. So if you're really interested in Spartan and want to hear how at least the way we do it, because we don't compete, like that's a totally different level
Okay.
of Spartan racing. But we don't compete, we do the open heats, and like I said, we do it for fun and to challenge ourselves, and we're in competition with ourselves. But anyway, yeah, that's where I'm at on social.
Okay. Well, at the bottom of the scroll down there, there's all of Kelly's information along with her father's as well. Kelly, if I can, I just want to clear up one thing real quick. Kelly, I know your dad, there was a account on Facebook that wasn't your father's, and there were so many people following that on Facebook there. We have to write one down there. We make sure we want to follow the right, Sergeant Slaughter Facebook page as well. So please, follow him as well, please. We appreciate it. So I just want to make sure that's clear out there because a lot of people are, catfishing people out there, and there's only one and only Sarge out there. So make sure you follow the right one.
Yes, there's only one.
Exactly.
And definitely you have the right one because I
Exactly.
gave it to you. So
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
But I'll tell you what, that's how you know you made it is when people are starting making fake accounts under your name and stuff. It's like, you know what? I finally made it. Yeah, there's 3 or 4 fake Facebook pages, it's saying that's who it is. That's how you know you made it.
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's get to some of the comments real quick. Eileen checking in. Hello, you handsome gentlemen. Well, the beauty's on my side over here. That's the beauty. You should be saying hello to her, Eileen, of course. Adam Glenn saying, what's up? Eileen said, I'm so excited for this. Spectator already jumps in. He said, the first time I saw your dad wrestle was in 1976 in Topeka, Kansas on TV, Kansas City. He used the Cobra Clutch then. That's showing his age right there, isn't it? And he says, Paul and Ken, this is going to be good. Scott Shelton checking in. He says, good evening, gentlemen. Kelly, what a surprise. So let's get it started.
All right. So Kelly, we're gonna dive back into your childhood a little bit, if you don't mind. Here, a little time machine, kicking it back some. Uh, excuse me, I'm still a little bit of a sore throat. I've been sick the last 2 weeks, and I'm pushing through it, baby. Here we go. So one of the questions I wrote down a bunch of questions here because I have a tendency to forget a lot of things. How did you take other kids or even adults talking poorly on your father, especially like the early '90s stuff, where he was really really bad guy. Like so, before I get too far and before you answer the question, uh, you were born April of 1979, according to the biography. So happy early birthday to you. But I'm a
Thank you.
May I'm May 1980, so I'm just a year younger than you. So I kind of know. We're about the same age, so I know like 90, 91, 92 when he got a lot of heat on him with the whole Iraqi thing. I know how upset I was at the Sarge. Being an 11-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, and not understanding the business what it actually is. So how did you take it as that's your dad and having other kids or even adults reacting to him in a negative way?
Well, he prepared us for it, so we knew it was coming, but I don't think I really knew how bad it was going to be in school for me with the other kids, and so it was pretty tough going to school every day and the things that the kids would say to me. And I went to a small school, so most of these kids, my dad had like been to the school. Like they'd met my dad as my dad, not even as Sarge. So yeah, I got picked on quite a bit for that. And then it was a scary time too, because if you watched the biography, you knew that there were bomb threats and death
Mm.
threats. And so it was very scary. And actually, when we were filming for the biography, I found out that they knew these people, they weren't just calling up WWE making these
Yeah.
empty threats. Like they knew our names, they knew where we went to school. Like it wasn't we're going to kill Sergeant Slaughter. It was we're going to kill him and his daughter Kelly, who goes to this school, and we know where you live. And back then, you could be unlisted. So we were
Yeah.
like had an unlisted number. You didn't, there was no internet. You couldn't Google us. Um, so we were unlisted. So the fact that they knew all of this information about us, and it was a scary, scary time. Adults kind of I didn't really wasn't around a lot of adults, but there was I babysat for someone, and the dad, like the mom came and picked me up and brought me over there, and then the parents went out, and then when they came back home, the mom was like putting the kids to sleep, and then the dad drove me home, and I'm telling him where to go to bring me home because there was no GPSs.
Nope.
So I'm
Follow the North
navigating,
Star.
telling
Where's
him,
the North Star
yeah,
at?
exactly. Um, and he said, I heard that Sergeant Slaughter lives down this road. Is he your neighbor? And I was like, yeah, he's my neighbor. He sure is. And so
Oh.
he just like unloaded all this like hate
Oh.
and venom about Sarge and, Iraqi sympathy, the whole thing.
Mhm.
And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, now turn this way. And he goes up our driveway and I go to get out and I'm like, thanks. By the way, this is Sergeant Slaughter's house and he's my dad. Have a good night. And slam the
Oh.
door and went. They
Wow.
never asked
Wow.
me to babysit again.
Well, he was probably afraid the Sergeant's gonna pop him like a pimple. I'll tell you what, man. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. Kelly, my dad was actually in the Marine Corps, and I'll tell you a little funny story. I'm 52, like I said, and I grew up watching your father. The portray from the beginning to the end. My dad had the not the kindest words about your father. Growing up, he was a colonel in the military. How dare this SOB do this, that, do all this stuff. And I'm like, Dad, it's wrestling. He's like, I don't give a damn. He's Sergeant Slaughter. I outrank him. I'm a colonel. And I'm like, well, Dad, I don't think you would say that to his face, number one, anyway. But Kelly, I did watch exactly the podcast that you were talking about where you talked about, the death threats, of course. Is it true? Two things real quick. I want to go off subject here with the second question. But did your dad really take down the street sign so nobody would know where you lived?
Yes.
He did do that? Okay.
It was like a carved wooden sign, and
Okay.
like where the wood carving was, it was painted white so you'd be able to see it, and it was nailed onto a tree.
Hmm.
So that was the road sign, if you want to call, like, it wasn't like a pole that was cemented in or
Okay.
anything like that. Like, we were in the middle of, it was, they didn't have a lot of those kind of signs, and it was a gravel road. And so
Hmm.
he would come and take the sign down. He would rip it off and put it down on the ground. And I would come home from school and be like, "Who took the sign down?" And I would go put it back up, and then we'd go to leave, and he'd be like, "Who put that sign up?" I'm like, "I did." And he was like, "No, we're gonna take it down." So I think there
Wow.
were a couple times he would like take it down and leave it by the tree, and then there was a couple times where he would put it in the car.
Mhm.
But
Wow.
we shared the road with one other person, that we only had one neighbor.
Okay.
So I don't think they cared that much. And the post office knew where we lived, where our mail was going, like it was a small town. So,
And
but
that's in
yes, that
Connecticut,
is
correct?
true.
Connecticut? That's when you lived in
Yeah.
Connecticut, right? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Weston, Connecticut. Yeah.
It's probably hell for the Domino's guy, though. I'll tell you what.
We didn't get pizza delivery out there. It was,
Okay.
we were too far out for pizza delivery. Yeah. But they
Oh,
might
wow.
get it now, but back then we did not get pizza delivery.
Well, they should rename that
Nothing
street. They
delivered.
should rename the street right there, Sergeant Slaughter Avenue. I mean, gravel road, whatever you want
They
to call it. They should, right?
should.
They should.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they totally should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to let one of the viewers ask a question real quick, Kelly, if that's okay with you. Scott says, "Good evening." Oh, I'm sorry, wrong one there. Here it is, right here. Kelly, what is it like having a superstar as your pop? What's it like in your real quick? What was it like actually?
So, so as a kid, like, I don't think we really understood that I thought everybody had somebody famous in their family. Like, I didn't think it was like that big of a thing. And it wasn't until I got older and then I realized, like, wow, like, not everybody has somebody, like, not everybody's dad is being asked for an autograph. Like, I didn't you know what I mean? Like, it was so, when I got older and like watching my dad during the Attitude Era with DX and him as the commissioner, like my sister and I watched a couple things together and we were like, that was dad. Like when the commercial came on, we're like, that was dad. Like that was crazy. Like, oh my God, dad was just on TV. Like it was like, it wasn't until we were older that it really like hit us like it was kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
That's
that's
real quick on the Attitude Era part of it. Like one of the things that were really memorable for me, because Attitude Era, I was 16, 17, 18, in that age frame. I was still really big into watching wrestling, but seeing the way DX treated your dad, they made a really they made an ass out of him a lot of times. That was their gimmick, that was their shtick, and how did that make you feel? Like they putting which I thought was
the
hilarious,
mask on,
the
yeah.
face shield because he spits when he talks. Then they had the little wipers on him and stuff like that, and they're like, because he's spitting on. Like, how did that make you feel? Like you're now your late teens, early 20s. So what were your thoughts on that when they would like make an ass out of him?
Well, I mean, I think anytime you see someone like making fun of your parent, you get upset. But that in particular with the windshield wipers, I thought was hilarious
It was
because
hilarious.
he doesn't fake that. Like he really, because
Mhm.
the way his jaw sets and he has such like his teeth come so much further, his bottom teeth come so much further, he just can't help it. And so there's been lots of times where I've been talking to him and he spits all over me and he can't help it. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, yeah, that was hilarious because it was like, true, you do need windshield wipers. Like it was funny. I thought that was funny. But, I mean, my dad will say all the time, Kelly, you don't have to defend Sarge. Like that's Sarge. I'm your dad. Like Sarge is
Yeah.
the character. I thought you don't have to defend Sarge because I do find myself feeling like I need to defend. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still you,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Wow.
Deep down, dad is in there.
yeah, like it's still you,
Mhm.
But it's funny because the picture you have up where he's dressed as Sarge, I had to specifically get that picture at Joe Fest last year because somebody, I was going to be on a podcast with someone and they asked for a picture of me with my dad as Sarge. And I'm like, I don't have any. So I
Amazing.
specifically had to get a picture
Well, it
of
took us
me with
it took
my
us a
dad
lot
as
of money. It took
Sarge.
us a lot of money to get that picture there, Kelly. We had to break the bank and out of the box to find that picture. So, hopefully we did the right picture there for you.
The
But
budget's blown.
Yeah.
That's it.
it's blown. We have no more guests for the entire 10 years of our programming history here. But we're done. We have Kelly on here. But Kelly, I wanted to ask you a question. I did watch a podcast. I did see a little bit of this. In the beginning, you actually wanted to be a wrestler, correct? And your dad steered you
I
away from
did.
that, right?
He did. He
Hmm.
did steer me away. He never really told me no. He would just tell me that the wrestler's life wasn't for me and that
Hmm.
that's not what he wanted for me. And I would be traveling and he still says that to me to this day. I'm like, Dad, you don't have to tell me what the wrestler's life is like. I lived the other side of it. Like, I know that you're gone all the time. Like, I know that. Um, but yeah, he did not encourage me. And my mom was not a fan of the business and she didn't want my dad to wrestle. So she definitely was not encouraging me to wrestle. And what I saw of women in wrestling at that time, with the exception of maybe one or two women, it was arm candy. They were managers and I wanted to
Hmm.
wrestle. And the ones that I saw that were wrestling was Glow. And to me, Glow was very campy and very it wasn't. I wanted to wrestle the way the boys wrestled. Like I wanted to wrestle like the men and I wanted to kick the men's butts. Like I wanted to be wrestling the men. And I didn't see that in wrestling. So there was no one for me to look up to or to model that after. And it wasn't until later when China came along and that's what she was doing. But at that point I had already ruled wrestling out for whatever reason. And yeah, like Sherry, sensational Sherry. Yeah, exactly. And it really didn't see, like there weren't a lot of them,
Like the only two I
and
can
the
really
ones that
remember. Go ahead.
were,
I'm sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was just gonna
The
say like
ones,
the only ones the only ones I can remember were Sherry and like Luna Vachon. Those are the only ones I can really remember actually like physically wrestling that were women. Besides that, there wasn't anybody that really stood out there. Like you said, were managers, arm candy, or just there for oogling.
yes. And that's not what I wanted. Back then I didn't have the words for it. Now, as an adult, I have the words, but I didn't want to be sexualized. I
Hmm.
wanted to be a bad A wrestler that was kicking everyone's butt. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Right.
I didn't want to be the one on the side who's distracting and being, oh,
Yeah.
that's just not what I wanted. And I'm not saying anything against those women that were in that role, because that was the role that they were doing it. And I'm not saying anything against them. It's just not what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
That's all. Um, yeah. Otherwise, I totally would have. And I really feel like if my dad had been behind me being a wrestler and seeing me do that, um, you know, I probably would have gone that route into wrestling because I really wanted to be a wrestler, you know, but I didn't have anyone telling me to do it. There was literally
No
no
push.
encouragement. Yeah, there was
Gotcha.
no encouragement. My dad still doesn't want me to wrestle now, you know? So,
And that was the perfect time. If you, I don't know if you do you follow current storylines or programming with WWE at all.
um, here and there, like uh, I probably know like very little. Like I know The Rock has come back and like Cody is like there was some things going on there, but
Yeah.
I really don't know what all is going on.
But with like the women's division is just so fantastic right now with the amount of athleticism and wrestling and like the skill set is absolutely they steal the show. They main event pay-per-views now or premium live events, whatever you want to call
Yes.
it. That shows our age. I still call it pay-per-views, but like it's so far beyond what it used to be, like from the Attitude Era to before. And there's like it's so deep that on this show many weeks we've banged the table like they need more titles to get these women more recognitions. They need an intercontinental championship for women's wrestling. They need more U.S. titles or TV titles just for the women, so they can raise more of these women, get more recognition for some of these women that just put out some outstanding work. It's the product is much better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like Scott says, Kelly, what do you think about the
Definitely
women wrestlers in the industry nowadays? What do you think? I mean, you don't watch it as much now, Kelly, but what do you think? How far they've come from eye candy to headlining main events? Of course, now how it's progressed, and what do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
I think it's amazing, and I'm so proud of them, and I'm proud of the women that came before them that paved the way so that they would be able to do those things.
Mhm.
I think it's pretty amazing. And like you said, they are much more athletic now and they're doing their main eventing, which is freaking awesome.
Mhm.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one specimen, Jade Cargill. She was in NXT for a while. Kelly, she scares me. She is just like bench pressing 400 pounds, and how it's progressed over the years, where it's eye candy, as you said, now to mainlining a pay per view here, of course, and what they've come with athleticism, how technical they are. It's just great for women's sports in general, entertainment wise. It's not just eye candy anymore. It's what you
Yeah.
pay for what you get, and these women are putting on one hell of a show.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. But Ken, go ahead. You have another question there?
I'm sorry. Excuse me. The throat is still okay. Did how did your dad explain to you as to what the business is? How did your dad explain to you that it's a character that he's portraying, it's a storyline, or this is what he has to do in order to get heat or whatever? How did he go about explaining that to you? The inner workings of the business.
So he really didn't smarten us up to the business, at least me. He may have smartened my sister up earlier than me because my sister's older. But he really didn't smarten me up to the business until the Iraqi sympathizer days. And I think he did that because we were so young, and back then it was very much you protect the gimmick.
Yes.
And in telling us the truth of the smartening us up to the business too young, and we would have run our mouths, and you know what I mean? I think he was just trying to protect the gimmick. But when it came to the Iraqi sympathizer, I think he knew, I need to let my daughters know, this is dad, you're gonna see pictures of daddy, and it's not real, and he had to smarten us up to it. And then I just got distracted because I saw in the crawl that my dad's Twitter is not correct.
Oh, it's not okay. I'll link it on there for you, Kelly.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's just missing the ER because it's under. So my dad is _SGT Slaughter, and then I'm _SGT daughter.
Okay. What we'll do is on the page, we'll actually link them on the page so they can this a link tree right to your boat there. We'll take that for you, definitely. My apologies.
Yes. Sorry about that. I just
No, I'm glad you did.
And I got distracted and lost what I was talking about.
No, I'm glad you did that. I appreciate that. It's something that I'm getting older. My eyes are bad, of course, so I appreciate you bringing it up to it right away. But that's I think your dad had to do that. Put you in light of what's going on there. You're seeing security out there, of course. Bomb threats, of course. Dad, what the hell's going on? I think you should be in tune to that. But I do have a question for you. I have my Chelsea here collects Funko Pops. Did your dad get a new Funko Pop come out, or a new contract with Hasbro? And what was it like? I think your mom banned the Hasbro things in your house. Is that correct?
So, the Funko Pops, I think he has 2 Funko Pops.
Okay.
There's 2 Funko Pops. There's a wrestling one and then a G.I. Joe one.
Gotcha.
And then Hasbro, my mom banned Sarge from the house. The character Sarge was not allowed in the house. Gotcha. My dad, in our house in Connecticut, we had a finished basement, and part of it was his office, and he would put up his memorabilia there, but we never really had it in the house anywhere.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever play with his action figure, the GI Joe action figure? Like, I'll be honest, did you sit there, outside in the dirt or whatever, and you're a little kid, like, oh, GI Joe, Sergeant Slaughter, pew pew pew. Like, you ever do that or what? I know I did.
So I played with Barbies, and his GI Joe is not on scale with Barbie, so
No, they were not.
he did not get played. He was not played with in our house. He was like on a shelf, just
I mean,
sitting watching everything.
maybe Barbie was into shorter guys. I don't know. It's the little GI Joes.
No, but like my Barbies would like go out on dates and stuff, and that'd be weird to have it like be my dad, my Barbies going out and like kissing. Like that'd be weird.
And, it's weird that you say that. Absolutely, like a quick story that I have from growing up. So those rubber WWF wrestling dolls. I don't remember what the
stretchy ones.
No, they weren't
Oh,
stretchy. Yeah, they were solid rubber, like
LJN.
yeah, and they're solid rubber. They weren't stretchy, and but so we would have my brother had a whole pile of them, and we'd go over to my cousin's house. They were girls, and they had all these Barbie dolls. So of course, to pass the time, they ended up getting married and playing house with these wrestling and Barbie dolls. And it was like Mr. Wonderful's married to Barbie and Paul Orndorff and stuff like that. Well, here comes Rowdy Piper, the next door neighbor. Well, now he's married to Barbie. It's insane. They were on scale. So
Yeah, see, they were more on scale, and my dad's GI Joe was like this, and then Barbie was like this.
He would go in the baby carriage, I guess.
Wow.
Right.
Kelly, what I want to ask you is one thing here. The Iron Sheik actually just passed away, of course, rest in peace there. Your dad had a unique relationship with him. And I will listen to the podcast, and I don't want tears to come out of your eyes. I hope we don't do that to you, because I did see that happen to you before. I don't want that to happen. Of course, I want this to be a blessing and a highlight to the Iron Sheik up there, of course. What was the relationship with your dad and Iron Sheik? Was a lot of people seeing good, bad. So what was the relationship behind closed doors versus the showcase spotlight?
So they were friends, and they came up together. And at one point before I was born, when my sister was just a baby, they lived in the same apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would come and visit my mom and my sister and my dad, and or he would come and they would be heading out to go to a show, and they'd be riding together. And so they knew each other pretty much their entire careers.
Wow.
So yeah, so they had a pretty good long-term friendship. And it's funny because he was around whenever we would go to different like work events that my dad would have. And when he wrestled the Iron Sheik during that show, it was like a family show. We talked about it, where it was like the traumatizing childhood trauma event or whatever, where he was like hit my dad with a weapon, and my dad was bleeding, and all of that. And then the next day they had like a brunch for all the wrestlers and the family and everything. And like he came up to like say hello to me. And I like screamed and ran and hid and everything. And I think it hurt his feelings, because here before that, I was totally fine with him, but I'd never seen him wrestle my dad before. You know what I mean? He was just one of my dad's friends.
Gotcha.
Like, and so then I see him like try to kill my dad in my mind. I was just a little girl. And then seeing him the next day, and he's trying to talk to me, and I was like, it scared me.
Gotcha. Before I throw this back to Ken's question, I want to know if this is true. The Iron Sheik read bedtime stories to your older sister? I did hear that somewhere. Yeah. Wow.
Yes. So he would read stories to her. I don't know if they were like bedtime stories, but he would read stories to her. And because he had an accent, my dad was like worried that she was going to start pronouncing words the way he would pronounce the words. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh. Eileen says it's crazy knowing that your dad was such an icon. I know. I mean, I grew up with your father, watching him I believe it was Saturday Night Main Event is what I used to watch all the time. My dad used to let me stay up and watch that. I used to love it, hearing my dad talk bad about him, then loving him the next week. It was amazing, and, oh boy. Ken, go ahead.
Excuse me. So so again, growing up, you go through your adolescence, into your teenage years. So one thing, I have two daughters. My oldest daughter is 14, youngest 11. I also have a little boy, he's 5. But the 14-year-old, she's getting into dating now. All right. So how did you introduce your boyfriend to your dad? And this, I know where I would go with this. How would your dad act towards your boyfriends? Would he be like, sorry, like, hey, what are you doing, maggot? Or would he be just like, like Bob, like super nice, cuddly, the gentle giant? Or like, I know I would go Sarge, just to mess with him a little bit, because I would think it was funny. But so how would you go about that? How would you introduce a boyfriend to your dad?
So when I was younger, like everybody knew who my dad was, so they already knew my dad. As I got older and people didn't know who my dad was, I would usually prepare them. Like if it got serious enough to the point where they were going to be meeting my dad, I would kind of like prepare them of who they were going to be meeting or like who my dad was at least. Um, but he's got a strong handshake and he's intimidating anyway, just because of his size
Six foot
and
six.
being
Hell
so
yeah.
big. Yeah. But he's got a strong handshake and I think he'd let them know, like for me and my sister, like we're his little girls and you
Absolutely.
better be nice to us or it's not going to be a good thing for you. Um, but I think my dad really has this presence about him because he is like a gentle giant and he's quiet. And I think that in and of itself can be scary.
Oh
This
yeah,
big
absolutely.
quiet man just like staring at you. Um, but yeah, I don't think he ever really had to bring Sarge out on maybe there might have been one where I think he kind of brought Sarge out on one of my boyfriends one time.
That's not the one you're married to now, right? I mean, he did stick around,
No.
right? Okay, okay.
No. It was like a
Gotcha.
high school boyfriend.
Gotcha. Kelly, there, like we said in the beginning, there's pros and cons, of course. We're talking about all the pros, the good memories, and your situation growing up there, throughout your career with your dad, by his side, basically. But talking about some cons, I do want to bring up one person. I want to talk about her real quick. Lacey Evans. I'm a big Twitter person. I've seen this little battle on Twitter back and forth a little bit. I give you a check mark because I'm in your corner with this one here. The Sarge has had the Icon Career Hall of Famer. We don't know what Lacey Evans is, a gimmick, whatever she has been through this, that, and the other thing. And what is your take on all that? If you can explain what happened and how did this really start? With the gimmick of Lacey Evans here going to the military background. She was a Marine, of course. I give her that. But how did this start, and where are we at with this?
So it started with I would hear these rumblings, because I don't watch. So there was just like rumblings about her and like would my dad manage her and all this stuff. And then they actually asked my dad to manage her.
Hmm.
And he was in negotiations with them to do it. They came to him and asked him to help her out. And so he was in negotiations to do it. And then in the end, the contract didn't make sense to him. So he ended up not doing it. And they went ahead with it.
Hmm.
And I think so, giving that background to it, like people didn't know that,
Right.
right? They just saw her come out dressed like him using the Cobra clutch and all of that. But to give that background, maybe that helps people understand why I got so upset because it was like they'd asked him to do it. He said, no, that should have been the end of it. Like it shouldn't have kept going. And so somebody sent it to me when she came out with the campaign cover on and then with the Cobra on it.
Hmm.
And I was just like, got a little mad,
A
got a
little, a
little
little bit,
angry,
a
sent
little
out a
bit,
little
Kelly. A little bit,
angry
Kelly.
tweet.
A little bit, Kelly.
Sent out
I
an
don't.
angry tweet.
Yeah, I don't want to say the exact words. We might get banned for it, but it's fine. I mean, there's one word in there that we won't use, of course, on this show. But I agree with you though. You had every right to do it because there is only one and only Sarge ever in WWE, WWF history, and that is your father. And where he's at now, and people can talk about him, and they all know him. We don't know what Lacey Evans was. It was a gimmick. So I'm in your corner with this one, Kelly. I really am.
Thank you. And the thing is, that's my dad's legacy. And it's
Mhm.
like a family legacy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not like how would people like it if I became a wrestler and I was going out with like rhinestone robes on with feathers going what, you know what I mean? Like people would be like, what is she doing? Like I think Charlotte Flair would have a problem with that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it's not so yeah, like I had yeah.
Mm.
So I don't know. I tweeted some stuff out before, but whatever I said in that one tweet really triggered her and she reposted it. And had she not reposted it, it would never have gone anywhere. But she reposted it and had some things to say. And then I was like, well,
Mhm.
let's have some fun. So I just tried to have some
Let's
fun.
push the buttons here.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's
Yeah.
have some fun.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. We're gonna have Scott's question real quick, but he's getting out of here. Before I go, Kelly, how's your pop doing nowadays, and what's his thoughts of the passing with the Iron Sheik? How'd that affect him?
I think it affected him deeply. I think he was really sad. It affected all of us deeply. And honestly, anytime one of my dad's friends passes away, it always brings his own mortality into light. You know, I
Mm.
mean, these are people that he has spent years and years and years of his life with. And so I think it was sad. And I think it was sad to know that he's never going to see his friend again and share stories. And, you know, I think it was sad. It definitely affected him.
Gotcha. Ken?
so real quick back on the Lacey Evans thing. Excuse me. So I know traditionally, if somebody's going to use another part of a former past wrestler's gimmick, usually they ask permission or they ask for a blessing. Did she ever do that, or if she would have, if she didn't, would that have changed anything, or was like it just you know what I mean? Do you understand where I'm asking?
Yes, she did not ask. There was no permission given. There was nothing like that. It was just used. And she didn't reach out to my dad about it. WWE didn't reach out to my dad about it. Well, they reached out, but he said no in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then they still did it. So, you're welcome, Eddie. Um, yeah, so there was no permission given, and I think it would have changed how I felt about it if my dad was like, "Oh yeah, go ahead, use it."
Mhm.
And she was using it, that would have been a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I
Scott
mean?
Kelly,
But
you're a sweetheart.
it
Keep following
wasn't.
the good work. There's a shout out to you there, Kelly.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
definitely. Mhm.
Thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah. Yeah, Eileen says she didn't need to go that route, of course. I mean, I read a Twitter, of course, and it was like, you know what, just like you said, let's push the buttons here and have a little fun. You know, she took it to a little too far where putting up the American flag, and I think she said, come get it, or something like that. Which, you know what, hey, you know what, it's play the role that you just were given, but asking permission is a totally different thing here, of course, you know. But Eddie says, to be fair, I think Vince came up with that gimmick idea, but it stands alone when you don't ask permission for it, you know, especially come out with the cobra on top of your head there. That's disgraceful to me right there, number one. But Ken, do you have another question?
Yeah, I have a couple more. But anyway, so sticking with the military part of it, I had never knew until I watched that biography that your dad was never in the military. And the thing is, I don't know if Road Dogg brought it up. I don't know if it was him or somebody else in the during the biography, but like I know some people were angry with Sargent. He wasn't in Vietnam. Blah blah blah. He's portraying a character. Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't in the jungle shooting at an alien either. You know what I mean? Like I don't understand. Like why people take it to a different level. Like what it is. Why bring it to a level? But I always feel like Sarge did so much for the military to bring so much more attention that he probably brought in a whole lot more people with his gimmick than if his gimmick never even existed. You know what I mean? That's one thing that really bothered me when I watched the biography. How it angered people that he wasn't actually in the military and he was portraying that he was. I'm like, because he was playing a character. I'm like I don't you know what I mean? So what
Yes.
were your thoughts on that? Like how did that anger you, or were you indifferent towards it?
Yeah, I mean, when there were first like rumblings about it, I was like, oh, they can't mean dad. Like they can't be talking about him because just a character. You know what I mean? It's just a character he plays. And then when people like really were running with it, it was like I I don't like it was like I don't even know how to respond to this because it's a character. Like I'm like I don't you know what I mean? He's speaking in character. But I think it's because people now they don't understand like when he was coming up and when he was really big into wrestling, you did everything you could to protect the gimmick.
Yes.
Like and it amazes me too because I'm like there's wrestlers that played that they were Russian and they weren't even Russian and they faked accents. You know what I mean? Like there's like the Undertaker wasn't really dead. Like you know
No,
what I
he
mean?
wasn't.
Like he like you know the pallbearer really was actually a pallbearer, but
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like there it's just like you could say that with pretty much every wrestler. Like should we go through all of the wrestlers that really weren't
Mhm.
what they portrayed? Yokozuna
Mm.
was
What's
not
the
Japanese.
that blew my mind. I didn't even know that until a few years ago either. Like that stuff like that. Like oh my God, they did a hell of a job portraying a
Wow.
character.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And like my dad has always said the story of how he yeah, Ivan Koloff was Canadian, right? And like, my dad's always talked about like how when people ask him how'd you come up with the Sarge
Mm.
character and he's like said I got it from the movie The DI and then I got the
Mhm.
name from this other movie with Jackie Gleason. Like he's always said that. So then when people are like surprised, it's like he literally just told you how he came up with the character. He didn't say I was in the Marines and I did this. Sarge started out as in the army. He was an army drill instructor or
Yeah.
whatever they call them in the army. And then he evolved and became a Marine. You know what I mean? So it's like, how do you not see that it's a character? So for me, it was almost like confusing because it's like, how do people not know and not understand? And then I just came to the realization that the people that are getting upset about it aren't true wrestling fans because a true wrestling fan understands what a gimmick is.
Yes.
Mhm.
And and if people continue to be upset, he's come out, it's on a biography now. He's coming out saying he was never in the military. Like he's coming out and saying it. How many times does he have to say it? Like now it's people just aren't listening or they're listening and they just don't care. And it's the only thing that they can say negative about him because
Mhm.
there's nothing else negative you can say about him.
Well, I think the
You
same
know
is
what I
always.
mean?
I
Like
think. I
that's
think.
like literally the only thing people can do is be like stolen valor, stolen valor, stolen valor. Is it like it's you know what I mean? And like
Yes.
even what he's doing isn't stolen valor. Like he's not going to the VA trying to get benefits at
Right.
the VA. Like he's not going around telling people that he should be the Medal of Honor winner because of all of these work things, that he did. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't even think what he's doing is considered stolen valor
No.
in any
No.
way, shape, or form. So
Not at all. Not at
to
all.
me, it's just trolls that feel like they need to have something negative to say. Like, there's always got to be negative, right? You got a positive and negative. Like, there's always got to be the negative, and that's all that they can say. That's negative.
Well, you're always going to have the people out there. Haters going to hate Kelly. You, of course, know that. But my
Yeah.
mom always told me when people talk about you, you've actually made it. So your father has made it in many ways and still is going to make it because everybody talks about him every day. I grew up with, just like Eddie said, your dad made being what he was cool. My dad was in the military. I never wore army fatigues or military fatigues, camouflage. I didn't want to wear that. But when I seen your dad rocking it, you know what? I was Sergeant Slaughter a couple years for Halloween. I was cool. I was cool.
Yeah.
He made it right for us kids. It was like Eddie said, growing up as a role model, your dad was that to many people out there, and it still is. But my question to you, Kelly, real quick, I know we have about 10 minutes here left with you. What is your dad doing now? I know he's a big Comic-Con guy. And how do we get in touch with your dad maybe to, see where he's going to be? I do want to link that as well once we know where your father's going to be to our page so we can help you out there as well. How did your dad get involved in Comic-Con and how does he like that?
He likes it. My dad loves his fans, so any opportunity he has where he can meet his fans and talk to his fans, he actually absolutely loves to do. So he loves it. He does all those appearances, and he'll do some charity things here and there if he's asked, but he's loving it. He's doing great. He's having a great time. We
That's
just
awesome.
went he had an appearance over in England in the UK, so I got to go with him, and while he was working, I was traveling around and seeing everything that I could possibly fit into a day. Um, so it was a lot of fun. Yeah. So he has a good time with his fans.
Mhm. Ken, I got one more question real quick.
And if you want to know where he's going to be at, the
Mhm.
best thing to do is follow him on Twitter.
Okay.
I'm sorry, on X.
X.
And his Facebook page, he does every now and then he'll post some stuff on there too, but he is definitely a lot more active on X. And if he has something on the books where you're going to be, he'll definitely let you know. Um, but I will send you two so you can put in the description or wherever for
Mhm.
everybody his agent's info. So if you want something signed, if you want to try to book him for an event, I'll give you Paul's information and you can post
Definitely.
that too.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Ken, go ahead.
So yeah, I do have a couple more questions yet, and they're very important questions I got to know. So back in the very beginning of that biography, your dad was a barber. He was a professional barber. Didn't like it, but he was still a professional barber. Did he ever cut your hair?
Yes.
How'd that go?
He cut my hair. Well, so we have an argument to this day about it because I said, Dad, you only knew how to do one cut. And he was like, that's just because your hair, I got gum in my hair and he had to cut my hair to get it out. But he made me look like Mo from the Three Stooges.
Good old bowl cut.
Oh boy.
That's
Good
Wow.
old bowl cut. He
Wow.
blames it on the gum that was in my hair. I blame it on he only knew one style, which was a bowl cut or a buzz cut. So two styles he knew.
Wow. Wow. Okay, I have a question real quick before Ken reads this other question here. Your dad, I was listening to a couple podcasts, and your dad is a man of the people. He never not signs an autograph. But I think there was one time, I don't know if this is true or I heard, you know where I'm going with this one, correct? That the only time he didn't do an autograph is when he was in the bathroom, I guess on a stall, and somebody next to him put a pen and a paper underneath the stall. Is that true?
That is true.
Wow.
That is true. It was at an airport, and whoever it was saw my dad, followed him into the bathroom, and slid a piece of paper and pen. I guess he'd been waiting for my dad to come out or something, but he had a plane to catch. And so he was like, Sergeant Slaughter, I'm so sorry. I have a plane to catch. Will you please? My son's a big fan, or whatever he said, and slid it underneath the door for my dad to sign. And my dad said, I'm not signing that.
Well, there goes my thing. If I ever see your dad in an airport, I won't slide it underneath the thing,
No, don't do that. Definitely don't do that to anyone.
No.
That's fantastic.
Oh, wow. Go ahead, Ken.
What did you think about your dad's first gimmick? I've seen that was one of our questions in our comments sections. But do you ever tease him about it? Because when I seen it, I thought, I think of Sarge. Sergeant Slaughter. That's who I picture. But beautiful Bobby Remus. Do you ever give him a poke about it? It's like, hey, beautiful Bobby, what are we doing today? Anything like that?
No, I should though. I'm gonna do that when I see him on Easter. I'm gonna be like, "Hey, beautiful Bobby, what's going on? What happened to your hair?"
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I
That's
love
fantastic.
seeing pictures of my dad from back before he was Sarge because I don't see those pictures a lot. And my favorite one is the one he's got a Mighty Mouse shirt on because I loved Mighty Mouse. I loved watching Mighty Mouse when I was a kid. So he's got Mighty Mouse on his shirt and he's flexing and his Mighty Mouse is here too. I think if I remember correctly, but yeah, I love him because he's so young and he's got hair and um but yeah, I love seeing pictures of him from
And
those
Wow.
back in the
it's
day.
funny. 'Cause when my mom passed away 3 years ago, you're going through all sorts of pictures and seeing pictures of my mom and my dad, seeing when they were so young and like especially my dad. And my mom, she didn't change a whole lot, facial features and hair and stuff like that. But my dad, would have this like huge bushy hair and like now he has nothing. I didn't have a beard. Now he has a beard. It's like so different. You're used to seeing somebody a certain way for so many years. Then back before you were born, seeing what they looked like then, you're like, oh my goodness, it's insane. Like the transformation. It's something. It's really neat to go back in time like that. Kind of like just travel back in time, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes. It's funny because outside of pictures, like I've never seen my dad in person without a mustache or some kind of facial
Oh,
hair. Like he's always had a mustache, and at one point he had a full beard that he grew, but he's always had a mustache, and I've never seen him without a mustache. I've tried to get him to shave it. Shave it,
wow.
Dad. Like, come on, it'll grow back. It won't take that long to grow back. I want to see you without a mustache, but
He's like, you gotta protect
haven't
the gimmick.
convinced him.
No.
Well,
So,
Kelly, we got about
And then
4
it's
minutes
funny.
left. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, we got about
No,
four
I
minutes
was
left,
just gonna
so
say,
wrap it up. We'll wrap it up here. We'll ask maybe another question here. Ken, we got one more question to ask here before we let Kelly go, of course. You want to go first, Ken? What's the one question that we have to know here? The final question of, the daughter of an icon here. What are we asking?
real quick, what were you saying, Kelly? You want to finish your thought there, real quick, before
I'm
I
sorry.
ask my question, my last question?
oh no, I was just gonna say that so now mustaches are coming back in like the trend, and I just all I see is my dad. So I'm just like, no, I do not like it.
The old lip caterpillar.
Oh boy.
So your kids, what do they know about your dad? Like, do they know that he was an icon? Do they know that he was an action figure, GI Joe? Like, because those movies are coming back, and you know, they've been back a couple years, but I think there's a new one coming out in a year or two or whatever it is, or is in production maybe or whatever. So what do they know about your dad? Like, and the icon, the American icon that he is.
I don't really know. I think it's kind of like how my sister and I were when we were little, whereas I don't think they know um how famous he is or was at one point. And I think they think it's cool. Like I don't know if they really totally get it, if that makes sense. And
Right.
they did like a re-release of G.I. Joe the movie in the theaters
Mhm.
a couple years ago, and I took my son to it. And my dad says at one point my son kind of is like, Grandpa, are you really in this movie? Because he really doesn't show up until like halfway through. Um, so my son got to experience that like in the movie theater, that kind of thing. And so I think maybe he has a little bit more of a grasp on it, but my daughter, she's only 5. She does
Yeah.
not, you know what I mean? She can recognize him like if we see a commercial or on TV or um if we're out and see a toy and, point it out, who's that? She knows it's grandpa and stuff, but I don't think like I don't think they really get it.
Gotcha.
And it's my son more so because he's older and I think he can understand more. Like I have had conversation with him where I'm like, you know, not everybody has people coming up to them asking for their autograph. Like, like this is special because it was like nobody really told me that,
Yeah.
because I did think everybody had somebody famous in their family. So, yeah, I've tried, but my kids don't care because it's like it's just their grandpa, you know what I mean? And same with like me when I was little and my sister, that it was just our dad,
Gotcha.
and because it was a character he played and that character wasn't allowed in the house, we weren't really around it that much. So it wasn't a big part of our lives. So
Mhm.
he was just our dad, you know?
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So he's
Well,
just like their grandpa.
Pappy
wow.
Bob.
Kelly, my final question to you is, We always watch a lot of sports, of course. We're out of the box sports entertainment, so we always talk about a lot of sports. Athletes now make so much money. When your father was in, the career that he had, the money wasn't there as what they're making nowadays, millions of dollars. Seth Rollins, I think, is $3 million a year now just for signings. But growing up, what I love about your family, your mother, you and your sister, and your father, of course, you didn't live the limelight. Your dad was kind of behind the scenes of where he lived on a gravel road. Now you see the people now portraying $1 million homes, $1 million vehicles. Their wardrobes $1 million, of course. Do you look back at it ever now and say, well, wow, my dad was a superstar, an icon. We should have lived a little bit differently. I mean, I think it brought you up the right way, honestly. I really do, because you're so grounded. You talk nothing but, high praise for everybody, even in the industry, even the bad people that you relay. You never have anything negative to say, except Lacey Evans. We won't get into her, but but it's a blessing to see people like yourself, portray what your dad brought you up to as a gimmick and the man behind the scenes. And I appreciate that so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, before we get out here, once again, can you tell everybody where they can find you and what you have going on before we get you out of here? I know you got to get out here and get your kids to bed. We appreciate you hopping on. But once again, please let everybody out there know what you have going on, your father has going on, where they can find you, and what night this podcast is on, because I definitely want to see it, because I want to watch the Friday the 13th episode, because I got to hear more about this haunted house that you guys had.
Yes, definitely. So YouTube is Slaughter Daughter, and we actually are going to have our next podcast on April the 24th.
Gotcha.
I have a Spartan race next weekend on the April the 6th. I think it's the 6th. It's Saturday, and my kids are racing the next day on Sunday. My dad's in Austin this weekend doing a signing. And yeah, so definitely check out our previous episodes on YouTube. Check us out, and definitely look for us on the 24th.
Definitely. Appreciate that. Ken, any final words?
Good luck in your Spartan race, and
Thank you.
Great. Love talking to you. It was a blast, a lot of fun, and I hope we get to do it again, because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Anytime. I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me on.
We appreciate it, Kelly. Thank you so much for reaching out to you. When you reach out to someone, you always get that, well, I read it, but no reply. But thank you so much. Right away, we talked, and it was just like became friends, all of a sudden, like, well, thank you so much for hopping on. Wow, no problem at all. One thing, this is way crazy here. Does your dad ever hop on podcasts for other people by chance, or no?
He does sometimes, but you have to schedule through Paul for that.
Okay. I'll never forget that name.
Yeah, exactly. But he comes on mine because I pretty much it's like our show. And every now and then I have seen him pop on some other podcasts too. So, but
Great.
like I said, reach out to Paul.
Great, definitely. And one last thing is there any charities that your dad we can link up to your dad as well? Because I always like to pay it forward to help out, whoever. Ken has a charity last year, we sponsored his as well, and we like to pay it forward in many ways. And to the people that we know that do the right thing for the right reasons, and your dad's an icon, and we like to do that. If there's any charity work that we can link up to as well.
Yeah, so Wounded Warrior Project is one that my dad has supported in the past, and St. Jude's Children's Hospital.
Two great
He's
ones.
been a big supporter of them too.
That's great. Wow, that's two great organizations that would definitely, because my father was in the military too, and he lost a lot of friends in, from Vietnam all the way across, to retirement. So that's a great foundation to get a hold of as well. So Ken, you want to take us out of here?
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Be sure to check us out tomorrow night. Time to be determined. I'm going to an indie wrestling show tomorrow, so it's either going to be 10 or 11. We'll figure it out. I promise. I swear to God, we will. We'll talk some Raw, some SmackDown. Thank you, everybody, for checking it out. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Paul. And you know whose game it is? The Atomic Drop Podcast. Yeah.